Wow, we just started with Corey waving around like he was at sea. It's a great start to the podcast. Hello. Welcome back.
I am at sea, guys. Happy to
The
still be
Mermaid
here.
Man is here. I didn't even talk about your shirt. Your
Oh
shirt says The
yeah. Well,
Mermaid
that's
Man.
part of the sea thing. I'm
Okay.
I'm wearing this because the other day was the 25th anniversary of SpongeBob. Did you know that?
I thought that was a SpongeBob reference. I didn't even watch that show that much, but I correctly thought
Oh,
surely that
okay.
was SpongeBob.
So the podcast is over, so Lucy can go
Yeah.
watch
So
the
bye.
SpongeBob she hasn't seen. Thanks everyone for
Also,
listening.
because we talked for 20 minutes about things that would have made a great podcast, but
I feel like
you
we do
guys-
that every time.
you guys weren't here, so you missed it. But welcome back to the anti-power hour of Corey over there and Lucy over here. We accidentally missed last month because we forgot? I don't know.
I was at sea. You know, it's difficult. I haven't had the internet connection in a while. Whoever's tweeting under my name is an imposter.
Oh, wow. They have pretty good opinions last time I checked, honestly.
Yeah.
So you should keep them on as your proxy, I guess.
Well, I've always had imposter syndrome. I'm really worried about imposters taking over my identity on the internet. So, I don't know.
I like the idea of imposter syndrome. It's because someone like killed you and took your place. I have imposter.
Isn't that what it is? You're just worried that you will be the subject of an imposter.
No, but I think that there's some specific mental delusions people can suffer from that sort of are like that. Some where you think that everyone you know has been replaced by like a pod person, which...
So you're not the imposter, but everyone else is the imposter.
Mm-hmm. The brain is a
And are you experiencing that right now?
No.
Oh, okay.
Can't say I am.
I would say I am like 10%, maybe. It never goes below like 8.
Well, good night, everybody. No, what were we going to talk about today? What was what's happening?
Well, I thought we'd talk about some bullshit and then close on some bullshit. Like, that's because the structure of our show is about.
Wow. I can't believe you remember.
Well,
many of the hot topics lately, so many hot topics.
was a good
I guess if we want to give into our yearning to do overly inside baseball about libertarianism, and we do.
How is it overly inside baseball when it's like
theoretically,
the most prominent
because social anarchists pay more attention to Non Serviam than the people we came from, possibly.
Oh, well, that's fair. But it's also the most famous man on the planet speaking at the
third
representative event for libertarians, which I wish it wasn't, but it is. How it's perceived. By the Libertarian Party National Convention is what I'm speaking about.
The train wreck continues, and the casualties keep increasing. The Libertarian Party, at the Libertarian National Convention, which I thought was for nominating the candidate from your party, usually, and not having the former president of a party that you, in theory, are not a part of, and yet, Donald Trump is going to speak at the Libertarian National Convention, and the idiots who took it over claim they also invited Joe Biden, and do we believe them? I mean, you can easily make a tepid, like, hey, Joe Biden, you want to come to the convention? I mean, like, maybe it happened, but that's sort of, like, that's not the biggest issue at stake. So that's neat, right?
I mean, it could be a great thing, Lucy. I mean, libertarians are going to get a whole new audience. Trump. All this exposure in the form of Trump. They're going to get record numbers like you've never seen.
Of Trump.
Huge numbers of Trumps.
Yeah, they sure are. So
it can be nothing but a genius move, is what we're saying.
As far as, like, you know, it can always be a little worse or a little better in these things that sound like terrible ideas. But as far as I have heard so far, they're going to give him a couple of minutes of just speechifying at the convention, and then they're going to, like, present him with a list of libertarian grievances. And they had, like, a poll. What do you want us to, like, ask Trump about? But as someone on Twitter was asking, like, is there any reason you think that Trump has active listening skills? Like, he is going to say some pandering positive things that are just about how the libertarians should vote for him because he's closer to them in ideology, and Joe Biden is very, very bad, which is technically correct, that last part. And that's all. Like, what possible, like, you can find plausible deniability to a point, but it's still so dishonest and such a stupid idea that it's
so you're against it, for it?
I mean,
I think it's one of the most inexplicable things I've ever seen in libertarianism, and I've been around libertarianism for like 10 years, over 10 years. So, and I've seen so many inexplicable things.
Yeah, a lot of them. There are a lot of those.
I mean, I saw Richard Spencer at. I didn't physically see him, but I was at the event.
Oh, I did.
You were also there. You saw him. Yeah, you saw him. You were texting me, I think, when that was happening. You were like, do you know this is happening, that Richard Spencer's here? And I was like, what the fuck? Who is this?
That was not...
Like, but that was like a guerrilla operation.
That was not Students for Liberty. They had no
that the host of the event, Students for Liberty, immediately repudiated as quickly and clearly as they could. So that's just
Spencer was in the hotel bar at this event, just so we don't imply any endorsement of that.
I'm glad we're talking about it. I still often think that series of events was a dream, but it's nice. At least it was a collective dream that you and I shared, if so. But this one is such a formal, official
exactly
blunder. And I don't know about inviting Biden. Because at first I heard that, and then I was like, well, that's like genius level entryist marketing, because like you're totally like ignoring the way the person would be framed and advertised and spoken about at the event, respectively. So, and then it seemed to be that it was more of a Trump reaching out to them and them trying to get in touch with Biden, but seemingly not even confirmed to. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I can be bothered to know the details in excruciating detail of how this played out. But it's just so transparently ridiculous.
Somebody in Trump's camp had what is unfortunately for them a sort of clever idea if they actually reached out to the LP. And I think that's totally possible.
There's not even that many libertarians, so I don't even know what the fuck they have to gain. It's almost just like this.
They think that attention is the only currency.
No, I meant the Trump side. Like, what do they have to gain? Because there's so few libertarians. Like, is there enough that? I mean, I guess if he want, somehow to swing it or something. But
theoretically, I would say, I don't know what well, maybe they're thinking that every vote for the Libertarian candidate is in play, and they're trying to get them all, which might be worth 10 minutes of Trump's time. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's an interesting kind of cost-benefit analysis of that. But yeah, I mean, no matter the way you spin it or anything, it's just beyond parody, giving resources and time and audiences to Trump.
Well, let's not forget the T-shirts that immediately were pulled down. There was a couple of weird T-shirts with like Trump hair and various libertarian slogans that are
they were Trump T-shirts with policies listed on them that Trump actively opposed.
Correct.
In his time in office, and has shown no sign of supporting ever. If there was a better symbol of like bizarre delusion, true genuine delusion among libertarians, none could be found.
I mean, I would pick up one of the shirts because they're embarrassing, I guess, for bleak irony. But beyond that,
you would wear it for bleak irony?
I would not wear it. But if someone was like, "Here, have this depressing shirt," I said I would like.
You'd take it.
Yeah. If someone
but then not wear it. You just are a master of strange and bizarre items, so I guess I know that's in line with your personality. I can never morally judge any of the items you add to your collection because it's this amoral, just smorgasbord of strange eccentricities.
I like objects, but
yeah, that's quite the object. Those T-shirts.
Well, I presumably they will never actually be manufactured, because the fact that someone actually had the PR sense to pull back from that is surprising. It's as surprising as the fact that, not the fact that LouRockwell.com's blog linked to an actual Nazi website once, but that they had the PR sense to remove that link after people pointed it out. Because these people are so beyond the pale at this point that I'm surprised they have any embarrassment left to actually take down these things.
It is weird to be so outside of that and like just find where they judge the line to be like, even in terms of PR, completely arbitrary and like pointless. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw tons of those shirts, because the LP themselves don't have to manufacture them now. Somebody else, some other libertarians that want to show up at the convention wearing those shirts, they can just make them themselves. So I mean, and I'm sure, and there probably will be plenty of libertarians there who are still with the Libertarian Party, but like fucking hate all of this, and hopefully we'll make a big scene with Trump speaking. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the best way this could play out, I guess, given how the scenario has been constructed, the best possible way it can play out for libertarians from a PR perspective is literally if like party members stopped him from speaking, and like a bunch of libertarians just like shouted him down and like didn't even like made a huge scene, and like the reports would just be about like, at least there's fucking division and like a contingent that fucking hate him and like didn't support this at all. I don't know, but then I don't know. Most people involved in parties probably just accuse me of like strange disruptive right college protester type behavior.
Well, you have an interesting history that I am more in favor of than I was when it happened, but yeah, you're on there.
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I've never shouted anyone down.
You never helped present any letters to any beloved figures.
Oh, like, well, yeah, well, there you go. Challenging speakers, like obviously can be good. That's yeah, okay. Now I see what you're getting at, but and I mean, I was
weird.
I was once present at Trump speaking at a libertarian event because Freedom Fest 2015.
Had him speak. Seminal moment and when some people with good instincts were like, "This guy sounds awful."
Yeah. Yes. But I didn't even go into the room. I couldn't be bothered. I still try to avoid watching or listening to Trump as much as I can. But so I didn't even go, and and at the time it was still farcical in the 2015 election that he would even get anywhere. But it was also like a sign of like, what the fuck are libertarians doing where they're hosting him at Freedom Fest? It was embarrassing then as well. But again, even worse now after everything that's happened and what he could potentially get at power again, and given that the convention is a much more formal and representative event than Freedom Fest.
Freedom Fest was always like throwing a bunch of shit at the wall, weird. Right?
It's always a little weird and a little more Republican feeling, and like tons of things for like fucking rich investors as well.
That was a weird sense I got from emails.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times with Students for Liberty back in like 2014, 2015.
Mr. Moneybags. That shit's expensive.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went with Students for Liberty, so I never paid to go to Freedom Fest.
Sorry, I'm engaging in class warfare over here.
Oh, yeah, Lucy known class warfare. So anyway, I don't know how we got on this, but I guess I'm just thinking of like all the other ridiculous things in libertarianism the past 10 years and thinking how they still don't match up to this one.
This is I was even next to me right now.
What is that? I haven't seen that.
The Libertarian National Committee is corrupt. I got this in the mail a couple of months ago.
Are you part of the Libertarian Party? How did you get that?
No. I paid dues for about a year, and I have obviously stopped. And but still... I wonder if someone poached a list somewhere. And if it was for this,
so that's against the current leadership of the Libertarian Party. Oh, okay. Yeah.
LNCexposed.com. And it says cancel your LP national membership. I stopped giving them money. I assume that counts.
Oh yeah. Well, I've never been part of the LP, obviously. Although I did go to the 2016 National Convention because it was right by where I
next
live,
door to your house.
and so I went to table for Students for Liberty there, and it was quite the time. That was the one, I guess, where that guy like stripped on stage, and that famous clip of like the candidates like talking about how they oppose driver's licenses, like that came from that event.
And poor Gary Johnson was like, maybe they're okay.
Yeah,
And everyone's
yeah.
like,
And Gary Johnson was like totally authoritarian on that question, by the way. And so even that was not, because that's like funny embarrassing. Like someone gets up and takes their clothes off.
Yes.
This is like
that's
just
not
pathetic,
in itself
pathetic.
unlibertarian to randomly strip at a convention. It may be, in fact, all too libertarian to do that. This is much more embarrassing.
It's not bootlicking this authoritarian politics. Like it's on another level what they're doing, and it'll be better. And I've never, I mean, I don't for a long time. I've not believed in electoralism as a useful means for much.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think it'd be good for libertarianism. The idea is if the party itself completely internally collapsed due to
really?
like internal division. Yeah, because then you wouldn't have like all the libertarians thinking that the party was the way to change the world and like sinking all their resources and time into electoralism, which I don't think is really worth it.
But the libertarians were never that good at electoralism, and I always thought the party
but that's why
sort of ignored
another reason they shouldn't sink all their time and resources into it. So that party, there wouldn't be this divertment of investment and like human capital and like creativity and time and labor, and there wouldn't be like a single focal point that like represents libertarianism in the eyes of the public, which then does something embarrassing like this. So the idea is if it was just more decentralized and kind of diffuse, without the centralized political party on a national scale, I just think that'd be probably better.
It's still depressing though, because even as the Libertarian Party has never done much, it is still the most successful third party in America. And even I, who has had next to no involvement, the idea of it collapsing because things are getting worse amongst libertarians is sort of it's not bringing me joy. This
it's a symptom of the thing that's getting worse, like you said, of fusionism and this stuff. So it's just a symptom, and I'm not convinced it was ever more like I'm not convinced the party ever was worth it. At best, I just think maybe it educated people, brought people into the fold. Like, oh, that's another political party. Okay, well, what is that? Google's the term, stuff like that. But you don't need that anyway.
I mean, yeah. Maybe back in the day. I still feel like libertarians have so much more to brag about and so much more to apologize for than anyone ever admits, because the gamut of libertarianism is advocating for marriage equality in like 1974. And
yeah, that's true.
One of the first guys to run for president of Libertarian was gay. There's been this fantastic history of that. And then there was Gary fucking North, the theocrat, who was kept at the Mises Institute as Mr. Important Scholar guy until he thankfully died. Who literally was a theocrat who wanted to stone gay people. Dominionism, like all the different terms for I want kind of Old Testament Christianity to be in my nation state, which for some insane reason has there's libertarians who are overly sympathetic to that. North literally wrote, I'm going to use libertarianism and freedom as a cool inroad to the theocracy that I want, basically, is the paraphrasing. Like, and they were like, oh, he's a libertarian. Look at him. He's so libertarian, having written down he was using libertarianism to bring about a theocracy. So that is so ridiculous that probably no one should have taken the Mises Institute seriously in any fashion ever again, solely based on that. But, and yet, there's a history of libertarianism that's awesome. that we love that is the opposite of that. And somehow they all ended up using the same word in America, libertarian, basically. So that's a big old mess. So maybe it should, yeah.
Well, as Jason Bias likes to point out, libertarianism as an ideology and as like a movement or community has always replicated or been a microcosm of like broader American culture wars and
sure
right left political
Jason's usually right about stuff.
pulling yeah, he's right sometimes, pulling libertarianism in different directions. So
I mean, I spent so much time being annoyed by salon.com level of like all libertarians are fascists that I forgot to notice how many of them were. But we're still here. We're cool. We didn't go insane yet. I mean, there's still time. Got a couple
yeah,
decades left.
I think that's probably an underrated thing. Like libertarians seeing articles like that for so long that were so uncharitable, and then
they
like
were, but they were also more right than we.
Well, but then it's like you see the uncharitable argument, and then you just kind of close yourself off, and you become immune to like actually like seeing, like instances where like that's closer to right, or there, or at least there are people within the libertarian movement that have something closer to the fascist ideas. So I think a lot of libertarians they didn't actually have sympathy with those ideas, but they weirdly, in part due to these dumb left wing critiques, became blind to them.
Yeah, so those critiques themselves, maybe those authors should have asked, like, do I want to be effective or do I want to be correct? But those people weren't thinking about reaching people like us. They were thinking about kind of reaffirming their, Democrat fellows' assumptions about libertarianism.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot of.
So just because you're correct in a sense doesn't mean that
and political writing takes a number of different functions and roles, and I still wouldn't even go far to say that like at least what the kind of article I'm imagining, that early 2010s like salon type art, like I still don't think they were correct.
Incessant.
I still think they're correct, in part because most of them, like, and this is the critical difference that libertarians must have to both recognize the issue but then keep a distinct libertarianism. Like those articles like would say like libertarian ideas themselves are fascist or end up becoming fascist, and things like that.
Correct.
And so I would obviously disagree with that, even though there are parts of libertarian ideas fascists can kind of pounce on and take and take in a certain direction. I think that's why you get people who used to be libertarians change their mind, stop being libertarian, and then become a fascist. They don't keep being libertarian once they become fascist, even if they still use the term, which many don't.
That's a good point.
But that's why those articles, I would just still bristle, and still outside non-libertarians still, I think, view it all like often as like they project like the ideas themselves are muddily not really libertarian. They're more, but it's like, no, there are libertarian ideas themselves that are completely opposite of fascism at play.
I mean, beyond the aversion to voting, there's not a lot. And the aversion to voting, it makes sense. We know, like, most people who will ever watch this know that 51% of the people does not make morality or practicality or any other thing. And so this sort of Democrat, what I was associated more with the Democrat cult of voting, it's easy to be driven off of any type of democracy whatsoever because, it was just so absurd the way it was framed, even from people who knew better. Prop 8 in California voting to forcibly divorce gay people who've been allowed to get married. Is that democracy? Kind of. Was that totally immoral? Yeah, of course it was. So, I mean, I just think that if you really follow the road of democracy is bad, voting is bad, you can eventually end up in weird Peter Thiel techno-fascist dark enlightenment land, and then you get stuck there. And
die,
hopefully.
Well, yeah, I think there's kind of two issues at play there. It's like, one, like a bunch of libertarians like didn't realize that all these arguments about democracy and liberal government and representative government, all these things were like not about like how those things were worse than like autocratic or monarchic or dictatorial governments.
Right.
It's just that there could be better things like little to no government than what we take as liberal democracy. That is the status quo.
Like,
And so, and it's part of a broader, like, the other thing being, like, are you anti-state or are you just anti this particular state? And so a bunch of libertarians are anti the government, and then they thought, well, they're just anti the reigning government. And that's how fascism, like, latches onto that, I think.
There's even better and worse versions of what you could broadly call decentralization, because decentralization sounds, nice and anarchist in a lot of ways. And then you realize that there are people who are still talking about states' rights. Like, that's a thing. Like, a geographical area has rights in some capacity. And you have, there's one of them crusty neo-Confederates who are still, and the LP now has been obsessed with hashtag national divorce, which people have pointed out that would probably end in some partition-esque bloodshed. Like, do you really think that can be done a non-acrimonious state divorce? Like, when has that ever happened? Maybe it has, but somewhere as huge as America, it's a terrible idea. It's practically terrible, and it's deeply depressing from a human perspective, in my book.
It's ironic all these folks fashion themselves as so stridently anti-war, because I think the calls for national divorce are practically calls that are pro-war. Mm-hmm. And it seems like a lot of them would be perfectly fine with some kind of war, a civil war, an internal pro-secessionary war.
We should at least ask them, what do you think the Civil War was about? Because, fellas, a lot of the official state documents say right at the top, man, we love slavery and we're leaving because we want to keep it. And we still apparently need to hash that one out.
I think decentralization is kind of a mixed thing.
Absolutely, it is.
And there's been like a fetishization of that as a process, where like there's no concern to, like, will these decentralized units have free movement between them? Because otherwise there's no really good right of exit. And that means they're probably going to be very oppressive. And they could be very oppressive either way, because local institutions get captured by local elites and hierarchies, sometimes in a more reliable way than larger, more anonymous institutions. So there's just a lot of these pitfalls, and I don't see any real correlation between, well, you got smaller political units, so the governments respect more rights. It could be just as bad, if not worse.
I mean, obviously in theory and probably in practice, I can leave the county that I currently live in easier than I can leave the state. But that's not everything. That's just a practical aspect. It's not like and therefore we can mold society just like this because of that fact, and every situation will fall into line. Like, it's not. This all turned into people being mad about the civil rights movement, like this mentality, like. And we like libertarians actually need to reconcile the fact that didn't work out for certain aspects of the philosophy if they are too rigidly about, well, this level of government's bad and this one is, and then this one's great because it's local. Like, it has to be more than just that. Otherwise it sort of doesn't mean anything in the end. It's not.
You just have to judge each one by your libertarian standard, and they judge one by a strict one, and then the other one, it's like, well, like you said, states' rights or whatever it is. And instead of like moving away from this, so many libertarians, I feel like, have fell to the sort of like neo-Nazi weaponization of like decentralized political movements. So, libertarians claim they're, I'm anti-state or anti-state, but then you're just, the thing you want, you describe as like smaller state-looking entities, and going further in the fascist direction, like segregating the entire world into these.
Right, and that would be perfectly moral, right? If we all agreed to do that, except for all the children, because fuck those people.
That's always a difficult for
I mean,
view.
They're the ones who believe in human action and like decision in individuals theoretically, but they will still discuss this like you can rearrange the chessboard. The people over here, it will fix it right up if just Fine, we'll put the Democrats I hate over here, and we'll put the white people here, the black people here. Like, they really sort of imagine that can be done. And
that's a great point. It's almost like this technocratic impulse to people that see them as like totally against the technocracy and as more populist. But you're right that it inevitably comes down to this, man of system, I guess, as Smith would say, or what he just described, like a chessboard.
I wanted the tech people to be good and not as shitty as almost all of them seem to have been. I wanted it to work out, but it didn't.
Well, I don't really know anything about, like, I don't really follow like the tech world maybe as closely as, I feel like what are the worst instances of their technocratic impulses, right? As we were just saying, going really bad. So it's a shame that, since I would probably fall under transhumanist most definitions. It's a shame a lot of that is like getting bad rap or bad PR because it's associated with people who want to take it in an authoritarian direction.
I mean, brain implants for people with, paraplegic locked-in syndrome, like, that's not a bad dream to have, Elon Musk, but, like, maybe he's doing it wrong, he's torturing monkeys, he's getting ahead of himself, etc. These dreams, or space travel, obviously, like, the idea that we should just forget all of that is, I hate that, because that's an absurd thing. But I also was constantly looking for, like, who is the richest person who isn't that shitty? It's my eternal quest to find out the answer to that. I just don't know anymore. But we should have brain implant monkey space travel one of these days. I believe that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always Prometheus, I guess, right? And it just feels like there's a spectrum. Like, you don't want to accidentally destroy the universe with your science experiment. But then you just don't. You don't want to. But you also don't want to sit in a cave and live an impoverished and boring life. So you got to find some middle ground there. You gotta do some shit.
Like, if we could have invented nuclear power and not weapons, that would have been a
it's pretty rough when it goes hand in hand with so I'm tempted to just say tech is like inherently neutral, insofar as anything can be, unless
I would say so, definitely.
But I don't know. I think there's argument, like, its use might be asymmetrical. I don't know. It does benefit authoritarian governments, but it benefits insurgent movements. And I don't know. I think there's some arguments, maybe like William Gillis would argue, like, tech isn't neutral. It's like inherently good because it inherently expands our options and our agency in the world.
Isn't that because he used to be a primitivist, and therefore when I saw him speak once, and he spent part of the time talking about how primitivism is terrible, and only someone who used to be a primitivist could truly just, like, roast primitivism. So, sorry, roast. That's fire. That's a little too technologically advanced for primitivism.
Isn't that only? Well, William Gillis did used to be a primitivist. That's true.
So if he's overcompensating for that fact, I support it.
Because I see.
It is
William Gillis is a man of extremes, and many of us would be perceived probably that way by most people as well. So what are you going to do? I guess. What are you going to do?
I hate primitivism so much. There's not a more ableist, more philosophy short of literal Nazism. Maybe short of.
Yeah, primitivism definitely sucks. I don't know why so many anarchists are compelled by that. I mean, it's just, anarchists, it's already a weird idea. Weird idea to begin with. So it's going to bring in even different weird applications of it. And I kind of respect, like, I always respect to some degree a willingness to be unpopular. But then when what you're unpopular about is, like, a really bad idea, well, maybe be unpopular with a good idea like me. That's better.
That is true. I mean, I know a lot of people who were like, no. I swear that the Unabomber has some good takes in that manifesto of his. I'm like, sure, maybe, I don't know, maybe. The dude was very smart, so sure, but
I don't know why. I mean, and Hitler was vegetarian. And Hitler was vegetarian. And
I mean, like,
let's discuss
book
that.
smart.
That's important.
Ted Kaczynski, for book smarts, I would say, for people who've murdered people, I imagine he's pretty high on the list in terms of, like, if you cared about IQ or something. So I believe, but you know what is worse? There's a little short thing written by Timothy McVeigh, sort of hilariously before all of, he was convicted in all appeals, and like, so he wasn't actually admitting to be the Oklahoma City bomber, but like, obviously. But it's this thing called Essay on Hypocrisy, and it talks about U.S. foreign policy and probably like Madeleine Albright and other things that you and I have heard cited before. And it's not wrong per se about how certain acts are also killing people and killing children. But like, do you want to? You want somebody who killed 168 people to set any of your rules? Like, a good point and a correct identification of hypocrisy. I am so sick of that being seen as some kind of like, oh yeah, now I got it all figured out. Almost anybody can like score a point against the other side by being like, but you're like, and that's not anything. Yeah. It's so limited. I mean, I think you should, there was that TikTok thing where like people on TikTok were like reading Bin Laden's letter to America or whatever, and they were like, oh yeah, you know what, fucking do read it. Like, I don't know how the kids today are learning about like 9/11 in school, my god, but like, yeah, read it, but don't be like, well, that settles it then. I mean, I just watched kind of a spooky TV movie called The Hamburg Cell about some of the 9/11 terrorists, and like, I just got very stuck in trying to understand the mindset of the bad people just because they were right about the one thing, therefore nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's like almost a weird joy some people take in pointing out like some terrible person also was like, they were right on this. Like, I don't know what it really achieves. Like I said, Hitler was vegetarian, right? Or at least that's my understanding. So,
and he killed his own dog. I mean, he wasn't even good at.
That's
and
right.
Poor starting World War II was bad for the environment. So I don't know.
See, this is a useful exercise, right? Like, what was Hitler on carbon emission? What was his net emission?
Very poor, because he started World War II.
But he was vegetarian. I don't think you're being fair enough, but we can move on. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
When Dave Smith has Hitler on his podcast, I can ask him.
That's true. That's true. When Dave Smith has Hitler, which is something Lucy mentioned before the show to me, and I just thought that's a pretty strong thing. Would you really accuse Dave of being willing to have Hitler on his podcast? And then Lucy said that was just something Dave said himself.
I mean, I'm going to be fair and say I don't offhand know the exact quote, but you know what?
Oh, wait, what?
No, having Hitler on your podcast, and the implication, I believe, was that this was like early political Hitler, maybe like just
Hitler,
became the dictator of Germany.
It's really late Hitler that his work isn't as good.
I mean, yes and no, but the implication was that early political Hitler, it would be useful in some practical way, and it would be so useful as to not be. But like, I know this is a subjective thing, but to me, it is different. This is the platforming thing again, and I think sort of people who are more inclined to agree with us probably sometimes are overly strict about platforming, and they don't want, nobody should interview anybody who's awful, sort of, or speak to them, and it's somebody should, if not everybody. There are different avenues for people to take, but the Trump at the LP thing, as far as we've heard, is he's going to speak for 5 or 10 minutes, and the Libertarian's going to be like, we're mad about this, and he's going to be like, great, okay, bye. And every headline will talk about that, and it will have done nothing but tie Trump and Libertarianism together in the mainstream mind. Interviewing Hitler or Trump on your podcast is one level of tacit semi-endorsement, but not really. going on Hitler or Trump's podcast yourself, I would argue, is worse because you're going to their territory.
Imagine if Trump had a podcast right now.
That would be so
Imagine
awful.
if Hitler had a podcast right now.
I almost think it would be just to become fluent in German, just so you know exactly how weird the guy who is screaming sounds. Because, German sounds angry to people who don't speak German. So, I don't know. I think he sounded angry to the Germans too. This is not the point. The point is that giving a speech, letting someone have a moment of a speech, this is fucking half the thing people on college campuses have been yelling about for the past 20 years. Yeah,
it's very different than
having Hitler Trump speaking at your commencement is different than having a QA with Hitler Trump. Like these are all different.
You're saying Hitler Trump as if it was one person, like a combined entity.
In our hypothetical, it is, I guess. But
what would you ask Hitler Trump? Because I agree, if someone's competent at grilling or mocking, I think either of those could make it positive in the eyes of the massive viewers.
Yeah.
Especially mockery. Because I
that's
think
what
mostly fascists they won't abide by the rules of discourse.
I remember people's monocles were cracking after the Richard Spencer crashes SFL thing, because there was a crowd of youths, like 20-something, some of them youths, some of whom I think were like Hispanic or like not as white as my pasty self. And there was sort of a vibe of a mocking crowd vibe, and nobody was, they were just like, the scorn was palpable, and I thought it was a beautiful sight. And some people were like, oh no, we weren't giving him like a platform to calmly present his Nazi ideas, so obviously we're the bad guys for that. Like,
yeah, that's weird. It's like some like worship of the so-called marketplace of ideas colonizes like all parts of life. Yes, like not only is the marketplace of ideas good, but like every time and place is itself subject to the norms of the marketplace of ideas. Like Richard Spencer shows up in your bedroom at night, and you need to hear him out. You need to listen to what he has to say and make his points respectfully, and then charitably respond.
That's going to be the pull quote from this whole episode from Cory. If Richard Spencer shows up in your bedroom,
you got to hear him out.
Hypothetical.
You got to let the man speak.
There's a Pope Hat, the lawyer Ken White, internet writer guy. I believe he called it, what was it? Something like first speaker bias or something, when talking about, again, the like college-esque kerfuffles, where in this framing, the person giving a speech, Madeleine Albright, Richard Spencer, someone who sucks.
Hitler Trump,
yes. They give the speech, and that was speech, and you're supposed to sit and listen to the speech. But, the kids outside with signs who are like, we don't like Hitler, Trump, Madeleine Albright, Miley Yiannopoulos, that's not speech for some reason. Because the response to the first speech is less speech than that speech. Which is exactly how this is framed most of the time, even in Reason magazine and shit like that should know better than they do sometimes. Like, and I thought that was great because, eventually if speaker 1 and protester 1 are yelling full tilt, no one hears anything. And if you wanted to hear something, I guess you can't. But, the idea that every time the first communicator that's the important speech, and their response via placard or chant is somehow less speech because it's complaining to these people, or it's a dislike of the marketplace of ideas, as opposed to merely a response, merely another idea for the marketplace. And I think Ken was completely right about that framing. I thought that was, he explains it better than I do, but
100%.
It's very useful.
Yeah, the response has another voice in the so-called marketplace of ideas, and I think that's a fraught concept. But I don't want to ditch it completely. So I don't know. That's. Imagine if there was something going on college campuses now, or the last few weeks like that. Like, that would be insane.
Wow, I can imagine. If I
Yeah,
try,
a little bit.
can you
I don't think
imagine?
the internet has ever been worse. I mean, because that's what this is about, by the way. It's not about the actual war over there or the college stuff, but the internet. My experience of the internet and social media fucking sucks. Everyone
Yeah.
is stupid and insane. Do you feel that way usually? Maybe that's the
Um.
full quote.
Yeah. One of the This is one of the reasons I have migrated more to Blue Sky and less on Twitter, even though there's
People
nobody
aren't
on
stupid
Blue
and
Sky.
insane in other
Well,
places on the internet.
it's smaller, and it's probably clickier, and it's sort of like a more pleasant social democrat level of left liberalism sort of
So I
place.
won't get all these people calling me a capo and a Jew and all these
Well,
things.
that's awesome.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, maybe. I mean, it's not. It's not great.
if people don't know what that is,
A
uh,
Jew? If, well, you see, let me start a few thousand years ago,
yeah.
everyone.
Let me
Uh,
the whole Torah. Sit back and let's hear the whole thing.
no, but what were we talking about?
No one knows. The internet being terrible. I was just gonna say a capo is
Oh,
sort of the equivalent of not an overseer. It was a Jewish person who was put in a position of some power over other Jewish
other,
prisoners in concentration and or death
yeah,
camps, presumably. To divide and conquer the population and to make it easier to control people by letting victims be oppressors to some extent. And those people, as far as I know, were some of them were literally lynched near the end of the war. People were very unsympathetic. I have heard of capo being used as an insult before. Before Corey told me he was being called that on Twitter, I saw a random person tweeting that word in response to Bernie Sanders actually, being good and correct as far as any mainstream person would be on Palestinian stuff. And obviously Bernie Sanders is Jewish as well. So what it means is you're betraying your people, and it's very specific and kind of if you're in the know, you know how bad of an insult it is. I guess if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. It's kind of bewildering. Because it was it was the same context. Like I said, all this last weeks, months, unfortunately. But it's crazy, especially when a goy, and for the non-Jews, that's you, calls you like, it's so crazy. Like, the internet is just crazy. Have you been there? Have you tried it out? Because
I
it's
would
kind of
never go on
crazy.
the internet, and I never will. It sounds awful.
Yeah, that's a good policy.
I love the kids today. I'm sure I bet there's a lot less overt, love of Hamas than there is some naive, certain, like, obviously it's fine because but as a cause, people like the kids today are all right for doing this to
Yeah.
generalize. And what really got me, and I'm sure just as an outsider, was a couple of messages from Palestinians, who were like, thanks. Or
Well,
even solidarity with you, kids of Colombia, here in our fucking refugee camp. And that really struck a
yeah.
chord with me more than anything I'd seen. And I was like, oh, that's why the social anarchists like solidarity and words like that. I think I finally am catching on to this whole thing.
Yeah, it's all pretty surreal, I guess, happen in real time, and like this, and yeah. Um, Aside from the inevitable with any sort of protest movement, um, where you get people doing not good shit.
Always.
Yeah, unfortunately, which both should be condemned, whether it's anti-Semitism or like intimidation, I think, and violence, whatever that is. But then to invalidate the whole thing, and everyone who's not doing that is such a frustrating mistake as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's just a spectrum of unreasonable positions that a lot of people seem intent on taking. But yeah, on the whole, it's I mean, it doesn't, with all the news coming out today too, it apparently doesn't mean much practically, but as an image.
Libertarians never like protest, and I think, like my beloved one cousin, did a lot of protesting in his day, and sort of amongst the social anarchists, left coastness, and those people in some ways maybe over, they think protesting is more powerful than perhaps it is most of the time. But our people, amongst sort of suit and tie American libertarianism, Cato Institute, Reason Magazine, whatever, we never protest to possibly an absurd degree. And I think that's interesting. Like, I think there is a huge reluctance to do that. And it's because we're individualist assholes or what. But like, whenever the big outcries against ICE were happening under Trump, and I still saw libertarians dragging their feet and finding some reason why they weren't in support of these protesters, who were literally doing a focused, tailored protest against a single federal entity, which is the most libertarian friendly thing you could possibly imagine. Not, I want to overthrow the US government and turn it into Belgium, or some elaborate, like, I want this to be European. Here's my 10 demands. It was a focused hatred of one federal law enforcement. And people still, we know people who were out there and stuff. So obviously this isn't everyone. But that was so infuriating to see, because like, you should have been waiting for things like this. This is so, there's no reason not to support this.
Yeah. I don't know what the allergy is. I mean, I think it's good to be skeptical of something that's a mob, I guess, and to not try
Sure.
to, like you said, lose your individuality or lose your critical thinking by with following blindly or something like that. But those are good rules of thumb and principles of skepticism to bring in many domains of life. And nevertheless, when there's a protest and there's a good cause and there's not that other stuff that would be objectionable, or you don't need to engage in that, if you do, then why not? I don't know. It's worth saying there are definitely exceptions. I mean, I knew a lot of SFLers even who are, I think that organization often is viewed as part of that Cato Reason Beltway thing. But it's always been a little more mixed, especially because it brings in students from sort of all sorts of different backgrounds. So I definitely saw some SFLers say protesting in like the BLM 2020 like riots. And two, you go back to like anti-draft protests, anti-Vietnam War protests, and people who would later become probably annoying on those issues and right wing, who were participating in that stuff and burning draft cards. And so it's there. It's there. But libertarianism, like we said, kind of replicates the broader culture war issues, and so you get this variety of views on protest and on if that's worth it, if that's corrupting, if that's pointless. But all I can think is like at least some, like people are doing or saying something, trying to make the just viewpoint out there in the public dialogue and discourse. That's something.
Part of the problem also, though, is people hate kids. I realize people hate protesters and people hate kids, even if they were vaguely, maybe Israel's, government's being a little excessive or something, but they hate protesters. They hate anyone who's in their way, which I vaguely understand, but they hate anything the kids are mad about. There must be wrong. And there is, of course, the eternal, like, I mean, truly, this has been said far too many times by left Democrats, etc. But it's true that a huge swath of people, if Martin Luther King was doing all that he did right now, would hate him. Blocking streets, causing fucking upheaval. The protest that is safely in the past is safe, and you were totally on the side of it the whole time. But
yeah,
anyone, even a relatively, like, the most peaceful ones, is still a crowd. It's still a crowd potentially getting in people's way, and people hate it. And the fact that it ever changes anything at all is almost surprising, because I think people have a real, at least here in the blessed America, they just hate it. They have a just instinctual, just immediate, just like, kids are stupid and they're rabble rousing, and why are they making such a ruckus? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird how a lot of it, the criticism does take that form, and sort of like picking out things that were said or something, and like mocking, right, kids for being like snowflakes. I've seen a lot of that, and like, I don't know, it's such a weird angle to take on all of it. It just really is like, that's the point you're gonna make. You're just gonna take this moment to like dunk on the youths,
Yes.
and that, I mean, to bring it even further away from the actual substantive issues at hand, and kind of bizarrely so, and so uncreatively so, because people have been saying that as long as there have been people, and to just evade the actual substantive, what are they protesting? Are they making a good point? Are they bringing attention to something worth bringing attention to? Okay, have a position on that stuff. Don't just like, I mean, yeah, kids are silly, and adults are silly, and senior citizens are silly, and
children are silly, babies,
and
silly.
it's just so bizarre, right? I mean, and these are obviously, more young adults too. Not normally would we be calling like early 20s people as like kids, but right, it's part of that whole, middle-aged people are saying it so well, and I'm right in between there too, because I'm gonna turn 30 next year, but
God,
I don't. So I'm avoiding what.
You're a youth. You've just been wearing a beard for most of the time I've known you.
You've been calling me a Ute for 10 fucking years.
I know, but you've been a professor. You've been a college professor for like 90% of that. So you're like,
what are you talking?
permanent. You've been wearing a beard for so long.
Oh, that makes me an honorary college professor. I
see. It
does.
Okay.
I was like, man,
really
when
does.
did I? What life have I been living here?
You don't remember? You are.
Okay. I forgot where we were with.
I was just trying to distract you from saying.
Well, you anything. Fucking succeeded, Lucy.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, but the age thing, yeah, it's just like, these are more like young adults anyway. They're not, and young adults can have dumb opinions. Maybe if they were like, there have been counter protesters. I'm not going to mock the counter protesters for being like young, although I will just disagree with their fucking points and arguments.
And they are fulfilling stereotypes and expectations in a different way, shall we say. Like the Mississippi ones who...
Yeah.
Everyone I saw in the photos was a white boy of approximately 20. And they were smirking, and they look exactly like you might expect. And some of those people might get better. So I'm not going to assume they won't.
Sure. Yeah, that video was wild. I mean, beyond the disgusting racism, it's all like, I just think to myself, like, you are a Ute. Do you not understand you're being filmed? That everyone is filming you right now? Are you like that? Truly, it's strange to see, like, because those attitudes are still around, but people are a lot better than they used to be, I would say, about not getting caught on film expressing them. And those kids were just like, no, we want everyone to see this terribleness.
That was wild. And that one kid who, I guess, was kicked out of his fraternity, so good. That's good.
Finally, the fraternity is cleaned up. Finally, after all this time.
If the tweets I saw were in fact accurate, that dude admitted that was him, and there was not any like, no, I wasn't making sort of ape sounds at a black woman, which seems really racist. Like, he had no other explanation ready for like, no, I was just making a weird noise because like, he had nothing. Like, he was being filmed. He admitted on Twitter that was him, and he had nothing, no other explanation ready. It was just sort of incredible that he was like, he was dropped in the current year with all the technology and had never encountered any of it. So that was
I don't understand, man. And who says racists are dumb? Get Lucy's spitter coffee on the show.
Yeah, so the kids. I was not protesting the lead up to the Iraq War because I was accidentally stupid. No, I don't know. I was 16 and I had a tonsillectomy the very day that the U.S. invaded Iraq. But in retrospect,
wow, that's an interesting personal fact.
It is an interesting personal fact. Thank you. And I looked at a newspaper in the evening because we got news from newspapers sometimes back then. That was weird. And I was like, oh, well, shit. We did it. They really did just invade a whole country like that. But millions of people around the world protested before that war started, and it still started. And even without being at all involved, I feel like that gave me a very depressed lesson about futility. I love people who think they can actually change it, because they actually can sometimes.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we shouldn't underrate the value of mass protests. If they're going to work out or not depends on a lot of other factors, I think, in the context. I didn't protest the Iraq invasion because
you were a little baby
child.
It
was the first political issue I think I can remember being exposed to, actually. And
yeah. Were you like a tiny neocon at the time? Little baby warmongers?
There was, well, years later, I feel like I was sort of, when I got into politics, when I was like, I guess 12, 13, and started watching the news, mostly Fox News. And for a short time, I was definitely like, well, sometimes wars happen. Sometimes they just got to happen. And it's funny to me how like quickly I was able to reflect on that and be like, it's not my position. But how many people apparently have held that position and still hold it and well into adulthood and for many years at a time. Whether the Iraq War or any other war, they feel like just kind of passively justifying because, well, why are people complaining? They're just naive optimists.
And especially if it already happened, it therefore had to have happened. So how could you ever imagine a different contingency? So if you nuke Japan, you had to have nuked Japan. And
there's definitely that kind of logic. I think that it becomes easy to just justify what we were looking to justify in the first place. And about the the protests didn't stop the Iraq invasion. True. But aren't we glad that in our history, they happened anyway? Would it have been better for nobody to have said anything or nobody to have objected or stood up? And I bet those people are proud that they said something anyway as well.
I hope they are.
So I think, these feudal stands, it doesn't have to actually change the tide of history to be worth it, because don't you wish you could have said you stood up to, whatever, Nazism in your country, for instance, even if it was futile.
Was Sophie Scholl maybe she could have been more, escaped Germany and survived, and maybe that'd be better for the world if someone that legit lived a longer life. But are you gonna sit around and be like, what a fucking waste that was, White Rose?
Yeah, no. Yeah, and that's a case where she actually engaged in something that cost her life and something that was a detriment to her. And these other cases aren't even to that level even close. It's just walk in a protest with a sign, whatever. Somewhere
like Iran,
so the rationale becomes even less.
Somewhere like Iran, where they haven't won yet, and they're still doing that. They're doing it a little in Russia. Wish they'd do it some more, but I certainly don't blame people who are scared to do so.
Yeah, it's very difficult, I think, to judge once, unfortunately, you don't have the privilege of some kind of legal system protecting your speech to protest that thing. But when you've got that setting, man,
not that
I don't
America
understand.
doesn't
Not
have
that it's
some
perfect or
problems
anything.
there.
No, but just compared to
Yeah,
the
grading on
Russia
a
like you just
curve,
mentioned, just
but
relative to the ones you were saying, and,
mm-hmm.
and so I think people are proud to have said something, and I assume the students protesting the Israel attacks on Palestine will feel the same way in the future.
I do hope so. I'm sure someone's going to grow up and be like, "Oh, that was so
Well, sure, and
embarrassing."
I just don't understand this, and of course that's inevitable, but so, I don't know, acquiescing to that cynicism is who does it serve? I don't understand. And the people who scoff at the protests are super acquiescing to that cynicism in a way that I can't really understand.
And there's still this element that maybe there's a touch of truth that everybody gets sort of out of touch when they're older. You could have been the most enlightened person, feminist, maybe even think those gay folks should have a few rights, and then you grow up and you didn't understand trans people and you suddenly sound reactionary. But you can adjust that if you really still do care and if you really are
Yeah, I
determined to
mean,
not become like that. I mean, I'm
yeah, I think that's an interesting topic, especially as I spend more years thinking about politics and talking about politics. What can we generalize about how age affects our viewpoints on that? People love to, of every age.
they're
So that's
not
common, I guess.
baseless. I mean,
But
there's not
I don't. No,
nothing,
I don't
but
think they're baseless.
yeah.
And I think obviously, yes, people. It goes beyond politics. People become stuck in their ways in
Mm-hmm.
general as we get older. The politics are not just habits, but at the same time, we still have free will. We still have critical thinking. We can still change a habit, stop a bad one, start a good one, even when we're
Just
older.
keep
So
some self-awareness and try to, I don't know, don't be also don't confuse like annoyance with a political viewpoint either. Anybody who's bugging me directly, I must, whatever they are, they want me to sign, I believe the opposite, obviously.
no, that's a great point. That's a great point because
It's not
annoyance is everyone's annoying. All
I mean,
political views.
I generalize about 18-year-olds and about 80-year-olds, but I don't, yeah, just use the brain that you have acquired and the empathy that
You've acquired. I was born with my brain. What about you? Did
my
you?
general my general viewpoint about humanity en masse is that, yeah, there appear to be people who literally don't have any empathy, and that's a whole other problem. But most people have flabby empathy muscles, and they don't go to the gym and work them out because they're too busy learning about like statism and tribalism, and they're like, well, those people are different, and I live here, and they can't come in without the. And instead, they should go to the gym and be like, yeah, we should be empathetic. Those people are kind of the same as me in like a good way.
Is
So
that where the empathy is?
yeah,
This area, the bicep, because
I
that's what
mean,
you're
I
working
think
on.
there is a severe deficit of empathy in the human race, but I think the potential is already there. Just work it. I don't know why this is the metaphor I've chosen, but
Well, I think it's good. I think everything has to be cultivated. It's not a switch on or off, obviously.
no,
And probably some people lack empathy for more understandable reasons than other people. I would assume because of certain life
literal brain
circumstances,
injury. I mean, yeah,
or yeah, some sort of actual injury or disease or something like that. But
mm-hmm.
yeah,
As opposed to the disease of statism, etc.
well, I'm just glad we can still come out in this woke day and age and stand up for an unpopular idea like empathy. Um, and you know what? We really need more empathy. And I don't know why no one's talking about that.
Well, I once declared on some manner of social media that, uh,
It was
like,
LinkedIn, wasn't it?
it was definitely not. kindness like won't fix everything, but like cruelty definitely won't fix everything. I apologize for
That's great.
quoting myself.
That's a
Because
great line.
The critique of like a fuzzy-headed Democrat, liberal, social democrat, fucking, what are those? Oh, yeah, no. Anyway, those people, it's like, oh, they think that like if they have enough feelings, like they'll change the government, and like there's an element of truth to like
if they have enough feelings. That's like a hilarious way to like, I gotta get more feelings to overthrow the evil government.
Well, like, I mean, the idea that like we can all divide everything equally and kumbaya, and sort of just like a utopian thing that I don't think is feasible compared to all the ones that I think are. It's the right talking about the left, etc., and think they're just naive college kids. They're snowflakes, therefore they just think, hugging and we'll just fix the world that way. And like, no, they won't. But the opposite, the smirking kids and the Trump, and like, it obviously is really not going to fix anything. And just because it's an opposite, like an opposing force to like kumbaya crap, doesn't mean that it's actually a corrective in any useful way. So I'm gonna kumbaya
sure,
all day long.
Yeah, I think people go so far with the road to hell is paved with good intentions, that sort of thinking, and it's not a useless aphorism or an inapplicable one, but you have to know how to apply it, and when and where and how, and it too easily is just an aphorism to like passively defend unreflective cynicism,
Right.
which you make sound intelligent.
I guess what a better example than all of my flailing before was, to me, is gun control stuff, in America specifically, where the barn door is open, and there's so many guns in America, and every time you see a particularly horrendous school shooting, I get why you'd go, damn, we gotta get that gun control. It's based on feeling bad that usually a bunch of children were murdered. Like, yes, absolutely. But you have to wish that into existence, and that doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. So that's
Sure.
that's my hot right-wing take of the moment. But
right wing confirmed. But no, I agree. I mean, it's never enough in and of itself. You have to know how to apply it or implement whatever.
But
good intentions,
the reactionary cruelty is the point, which is such a that statement really is going to go in the history books from that one dude, Adam Serwer, that so applicable to stuff. That will not do anything either, like the reaction the implying that you don't care, that you literally care more about an inanimate object than a child's life.
Right.
As the exchange is not that easy at all, but just being an asshole hasn't fixed any of the other stuff. Having a president who just talks shit all day long didn't actually fix politics. All it did was make being weird, rude, and hostile in, DC institutions more socially acceptable. That's all it did. It didn't it didn't unveil the terrible truth and make people actually hate politicians. All it did was give a weird cult around a really annoying, rude guy who doesn't have the wonk training to pretend he actually cares or knows about anything. But it's the same thing in a ruder outfit. All it is.
Yeah, but I really think he should speak at the Libertarian Party National Convention, because it'll be great. Let's not worry about it.
Speaking of platforming people who are wrong, I kind of want to talk to somebody who thinks this time fusing libertarianism and the far right will work, and be like, tell me how it's going to work this time compared to the 1990s when this was tried, compared to Murray Rothbard, who has written interesting things, ending his life as a David Duke apologist idiot. Like, how is it going to be different this time, fellas and ladies? Because no one's telling me.
Well, they think that was when Rothbard was at his most intelligent.
Then if they really thought
the metric of success becomes warped by your means, I guess, too. So, I mean, this is a success, and to some people, I feel like Trump speaking, it's like that inherently somehow is a success. It's like, well, no, this is the logic of political parties, unfortunately.
Because Trump trolled his way to the presidency and brought that 4chan energy to the mainstream world, they think that attention and rage clicks will win the day. I think that's all they need. I think. As if headlines. I mean, what are they?
It's weird that that's the most charitable thing we can come up with.
Yeah.
On this, but that's. I really don't know what the better case is.
Well, we're doomed, but I refuse to be those people. So we're not. It's
yeah. 30 years from now, when Trump is in his 14th term as Libertarian president, we'll be glad we said something on this day today.
And speaking of transhumanism, he will be a horrible cyborg entity by that point. And man, will our faces be red by then? Because
I was imagining like Futurama head in a jar.
Yeah. Thing. Theoretically, those people are easier to depose, but that never seemed to come up. Oh no, but Nixon in a jar had like a robot body that one time.
So, yeah, he did. Yeah, that's true. So he could have a robot body. So transhumanism, I guess, will be a thing if our prediction. So that's cool. Like we can have robot bodies, also in this prediction of the future. Like Trump is president for like a million years, but we got robot bodies. That's not a bad trade, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's just something that we have to like work towards.
What robot bodies or Trump being president for a million years?
Oh, robot bodies and space travel.
Yeah.
You know, it was, I don't know if you remember crack.com, which had a couple years of being awesome and weird, addictive listicle site. That was the first place where I realized there was a really good listicle about how all the horrible things about space travel that most of us don't think about, like the human body, like the squishy biological form was not meant to be in space. That was the most daunting thing I've ever read up until that point, about how like, wow, we're going to really have to work on this space travel shit because we are not made like...
Oh, yeah.
UFOs are probably robot drones because we are not made for out there. But we
could evolve.
We could.
If you just throw a man into space with no suit every day for like a million years, maybe... Is that how evolution works?
I think so.
Like we'd slowly adapt. The rest of us would.
No, but
I need to go to take my science again.
You could, and I was the homeschooled one. Damn, you could probably make a weird sci-fi story where that was how evolution worked.
Probably exists already.
Apropos of nothing, there is a great sci-fi very short story, and it's either called Meat or They're Made of Meat. I don't know if
one or the other.
All it is a conversation between two alien entities that like we don't know what they look like or anything. And one of them is like, they're talking about how they're communicating with aliens, and the one's like, they're made of meat, and the other one's like, what are you talking about? Meat can't talk. It's like, I swear to God, like they're communicating, but like they're meat, and it's so much better than almost any sci-fi thing you've ever seen, just because it, like you get it. We're the meat. It's us.
I would be surprised if anything but meat talked. I would be a little taken aback.
But they're baffled by it. And there's some allusion to like, I don't know, like a talking planet or something that's clearly not like us or whatever, but like they don't even believe it that meat can talk. So
man, you love this story.
It's really good. I love it. It gets passed around the internet occasionally because it's very short and it's good and you should read it.
All right. I'll read it. This instance of read it.
I guess that's my replacement for wrapping things up on something non-political and good that we're doing, which was my old tradition on the old podcast. That and playing way too much Animal Crossing as if it's 2020 and we're all dying of COVID. That's what I've been doing.
I've never played Animal Crossing.
It's very soothing.
Oh, well, that's nice. Mm-hmm. It's not
picking digital fruit and going swimming, digging a hole.
What? That's what the game is?
That's pretty
Or have you just been doing those things in real life?
Oh, no, I should. No, that's pretty much, that sums it up. So that's good.
That's good. I've been doing that in real life, digging lots of holes,
picking
fruit, etc.
Sounds okay. I'm not good at digging though. I don't know how to dig.
You just haven't. Your potential hasn't been unleashed yet.
That's true. Have you been doing anything besides digging holes?
Oh, you're like actually asking me.
I mean, theoretically, we're actually podcasting right now.
Oh yeah, we're live right now. Fuck.
Something good. It's not about genocide or.
I don't know. I mean, I watch a lot of movies. People know. I mean, talk about movies a lot. I don't know. I watched Poor Things. Did you see that?
No, I haven't yet. I would like to.
Oh, you'd fucking like it a lot.
Did you
it's
like
really
it?
Good. It's really good, and like I feel like you in particular would enjoy it. So if you like, I don't know if you. I think it's on Hulu or you stream it some other way. I don't know.
All right.
Or go to Blockbuster down the road. I'm sure they got it.
I will get in my time machine. Someday I will. I'm gonna get my time machine.
And then, this was fun. Maybe you'd find this interesting. You, Lucy, probably not our viewers, but they re-released the Spider-Man movies in theaters, so I went and saw all the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies on the big screen, which was like fun as shit.
I don't know if I saw those first two in theaters when I think I probably did.
I did. I was a little kid. I remember for some of the first movies I saw in theaters. So I was like, I leapt at the opportunity to see him again 20 years later.
I finally saw the third one like last year, and it
you did?
It's really terrible.
Spider-Man 3 is a little underrated, I think. I mean, we could get off on a whole tangent, but
it was pretty rough.
It's like very underrated. I will maintain. And
this is your hottest take so far. So I'm like,
it has a growing contingent. It's kind of like the Star Wars prequels, where it's remained in the cultural consciousness in part thanks to the great memes and the images that people now see of those movies before they even see the movies. But it's also like
that's true. I saw that for so long. The fucking emo hair, the weird dance.
Oh yeah,
like
Bully Maguire.
Yeah.
And like the prequels, there's like a growing contingent, I think, of people who grew up with them, and they just like them unironically. Like they'll go to bat to them, they'll defend them. Now I don't actually like the Star Wars prequels, but I acknowledge this.
Apologize more because the sequels were that bad. So that's.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the prequels or the sequels, really. Not really. Not
I don't love either. The prequels are better. I have a higher tolerance for melodrama than I did when I was a teen, so Revenge of the Sith is actually kind of fun now. But I mean,
I liked a lot of The Last Jedi. That's the only, and I know you don't like that for some reason, but because that's very uncontroversial.
They're all terrible.
It's very uncontroversial to like The Last Jedi. I'm surprised that's drawing ire from you because everyone has.
If I was picking from the sequels, I would pick that one because it looks much better, and other vague reasons. All three of them are terrible films.
You've got Puppet Yoda in The Last Jedi.
It's not. Yeah, it's
the prequels having CGI Yoda.
Terrible. Oh, I was traumatized for life when I saw CGI Yoda in a theater doing like a lightsaber battle.
They ruined Yoda. But Last Jedi brings you, and he's my favorite Star Wars character. So The Last Jedi brought him back to.
I love Yoda, but that's not enough. Those are all terrible.
We've argued
about this
so many times.
The least derivative, and it's also the worst one. But they're all the worst one in slightly different ways.
I don't like The Force Awakens or The Rise of Skywalker. I agree with you on those. The Last Jedi I like more.
The Force Awakens has not been hated enough to this day because it's literally a new.
It's so aggressively mediocre and derivative is the best word, obviously. But
J.J. Abrams sucks, except when it's
Spider-Man 3
television shows.
No, you're getting us off track. Spider-Man 3 is such a classic. That stuff is supposed to be goofy and cheesy. Right? Sam Raimi understands that superheroes are campy.
He does.
People forgot that at some point. I don't know when movies forgot, but
the first one has a fabulous balance of that. like the scene. I haven't rewatched the second one with what's his
Alfred
name?
Molina.
Yes, Alfred
As
Molina.
Doc Ock.
Yes. I really need to rewatch that because it's been a million years. But I
Oh yeah,
rewatched the
do it.
first Sam Raimi one, and I was like, this is way better than I thought. This is really well balanced between camp and like seriousness. Like this, there are real stakes. You know, it's not, we're not winking about everything, but
yeah, sincere, very sincere movies.
Like the Green Goblin is amazingly like camp, but also kind of scary. The thing with the balcony, that whole scene, I was like, this is hitting the sweet spot, isn't it? Like, it's like
good.
It's very impressive, and I think Tom Holland is so fucking good as Spider-Man, and he did not get a movie anywhere near as good as that first one. So
no, and Spider-Man 2 is even better, so you should rewatch it. So Spider-Man 1 and 2 are like two of my favorite movies of all time. I think Spider-Man 2 is even better, and I like Tom Holland
better
too.
when I was a youth, so I got to get back to that one too. Tom Holland needed a movie as good as that first one, if nothing else.
Yeah, I don't think those movies
that stand
are good
up as well, because Homecoming has a lot of good stuff in it. It doesn't, and he's particularly fabulous. I actually think the villain is really awesome in that.
Yeah,
but it still doesn't stand on its own. There's like too much Iron Man. It's too connected to the whole. And that first Spider-Man it could just be that
that first Spider-Man is like the platonic ideal of an origin story to me. I just think it really hits all. Spider-Man is like myth at this point. The lines Uncle Ben, and it plays it so well. And like you said, it doesn't like because I prefer the camp and the humor of those movies to like most of the time the style of humor in a lot of recent films, superhero or otherwise, is more of like something dramatic happens and then a character like makes a joke or quips. And it's supposed to, but it really just undermines the drama of what just happened and reminds you this isn't real. Whereas the Sam Raimi, it commits.
I agree.
Yeah.
People blame Joss Whedon for that, but Joss Whedon himself does not do that as poorly as the derivative Joss Whedon does.
Like the imitators. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even really like that first Avengers movie had that in the bad sense as well. But Joss Whedon television shows, the stakes are pretty high. Like, yeah, there's a lot of quipping, but we're not being told, don't take this seriously. Like, this isn't really happening. So people, just because he seemed like he was a dick, and because that style of dialogue has sort of trickled down, I almost feel like people forgot how good Joss Whedon's TV shows actually were and how
he
cares about his characters,
like 10 years from now they'll be like 10 years from now they'll be like, oh fucking yeah, he does. And that makes for great stories. I mean, 10 years from now they'll be like the internet discourse of like, hey, wait a minute, we collectively forget how fucking good Buffy is, and
oh my god,
and Firefly, and in my opinion, those first two Avengers I really love, both first two, I think, actually, and and it's kind of because he trying to be such a dick, and some of the elements of the way he does things have become so pervasive and copied. I feel like it's kind of invoked to like shit on him, but shitting on his art and his works to me is not. I love that stuff. Great. And it sucks. So I mean, sucks that he was a dick, too. Like,
and because like no one expected, what's his name? Zack Snyder is by all accounts a perfectly nice person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But his movies are pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But no one expected him to have invented feminism the way that Joss Whedon invented feminism in the 90s. So obviously everyone had a lot higher hopes for him, I think.
It's so funny to me that Zack Snyder is actually this like great guy to work with and like super chill, and like I've seen interviews with him, I've seen like other people talk about him. I fucking hate his movies. I love really the iconography and the visuals, but like as movies, as stories, and characters, they're all really bad. So, but it's so funny that he's a great guy. I
mean, I even think that if he had like a co-director, maybe he could be saved almost.
No, yeah, he's one of those, I think, where he needs to be filtered and helped. And with
even like George Lucas. So I mean, and
Lucas is like that too. That's what I think of.
But I mean, Zack Snyder, like his action stuff isn't terrible sometimes. Like It's like, you need to not you need to not be in charge of this. You need to not write it because
like you compare the visuals in a lot of those DC movies, I think are better than a lot of the MCU, and he treats the characters like these mythical figures
to a fault in Man of Steel.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It becomes, and it's interesting because it's kind of like DC's failure mode, right? It's like they're gods, the MCU are people, so their styles kind of reflect the divergent philosophies. But nevertheless, MCU can, at worst, look pretty boring, and the DC Zack Snyder movies always had these like striking visuals. And I know he would storyboard his stuff out like a comic book before filming it, which probably is why they look so great in part.
Honestly, Man of Steel, if the Kents were not so god awful, that would fix an enormous percentage of that movie for me.
It would take a lot more for me. I don't know, but
I mean, it would more. But like the rot, that like the rotted roots, that is that characterization just like cripples Superman and makes him poisonous and not awesome. And it's very bad.
Well, did you see the suit, the new Superman suit yesterday?
No.
Oh, they revealed a picture of the. Well, you know, there's a new Superman movie coming out.
I don't even remember who is playing.
So
I'm totally blanking right now.
David Cornsweet is playing Superman. It is a weird name, although I don't really know him, but he looks the part. And playing Lois, I'm ecstatic. Is I forget the actor's name, but she played Marvelous Ms. Maisel.
Rachel Brosnahan?
Yeah, her.
Yeah.
I love that show, and I think she'll be a great Lois.
I bet she'll like a good Lois. Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's such good casting. And that show, if anyone hasn't watched Marvelous Ms. Maisel, go see that. And then
I've always been part of that. I never finished, but
it's really good. I like the ending. And the new Superman's directed by James Gunn. It's like in the new canon or new universe that DC is trying to do. So we're gonna get. It's just, we're talking about the failed Superman from 10 years ago. Well, we're about to get another Superman attempt. I'm more optimistic about this one. We'll see. The suit was like middling. You can look it up after this. I'm curious what you think about it.
Poor Henry Cavill, the handsomest man in the world, could have made a good Superman, but they didn't give him a chance, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think it was him, right? It was the writing, right? It wasn't him. He was probably told to act a certain way.
You cannot be I would love to see people initially scared of Superman. That's the only amount of realism I want, is like initially people are like, holy shit, like look at that guy.
Yeah.
But then it has to turn around because he's a goddamn Boy Scout.
He's a nice guy.
And then they have to you can't have him be like a dour god. Like what is the point of that? That's so stupid.
Yeah, it's not. I don't see the point. It's funny what your description kind of reminds me of like the classic like the very, if you go back and like read Action Comics 1, like when Superman meets Lois
my
Lane.
Original copy.
just paging through my original copy of Action Comics #1. Like Superman, there's like a famous panel where he meets Lois and she's like completely like that, like, wait, what the fuck is it? But he's got a speech bubble and he's like, no need to be afraid, ma'am, or something like that. I feel like that you just kind of like described that is a good way to introduce the character.
Once again, he is the only superhero that I truly prefer in comics that I've read. That's the only thing I've seen that pulls it off, really, where you're not bored by him, him being so goddamn perfect. But like, if they managed to pull off Captain America so well in movies where he's a huge dork, but you really like him, they could have done it better with
That's
him.
A great description. I do love Captain MCU, but I also love plenty of Superman. I love the original movie. I love the cartoons. So maybe I need
to watch the rest of the Superman movies because I'm very picky, but I can't do turning the world back to save Lois. It's too much. I'm like, that's officially too powerful. That's you can fly. You can have laser eyes.
It's Silver Age camp.
I haven't yet reached the level where I can accept that. Maybe in time,
as I
grow, I'll be able
go
to
through
do
a process of enlightening and Zen to appreciate the ending of Superman 1. You need to be really high IQ to appreciate the ending of Superman 1.
And like the flying scene, that's so fucking tacky in a way that it's too, like, it hurts. I'm trying to grow as a person and cringe at like nothing, but it's an ongoing struggle. But as a Superman, he is amazing because he really does a great job being like, I'm a shy guy who's not absurdly handsome. Oh, geez, Lois. And then I am.
I know
Superman.
it's
He's so good at it. I've never seen anyone better at it. But
it's unbelievable, and I think it's almost a curse that all these subsequent iterations have had to struggle with, because it's like they really nailed it. At least, maybe parts of the movie you don't like, but Superman, they nailed him 50 years ago, costume, actor, and all. And it's like ever since, like, fuck, man, how do you ever?
Well, I mean, Zack Snyder basically didn't try, as far as I can tell, which is another bold
another bold move.
Yeah, I mean, just why bother trying? Why not have weird, grim parents who don't want you to save people? Like, it's a whole different take.
Are you familiar with the Fleischer Supermans, the cartoons from the 30s?
A little bit, because all Fleischer cartoons ever are awesome, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, I love Fleischer, Popeye, especially, and to me that still might be my favorite on-screen iteration of Superman, because they're just gorgeous.
I've only seen them. I should probably go back.
Oh, they're on YouTube. People should go look, and they're like 8 minutes, an episode. It's just, but that's almost what's great, because it distills it down, like it distills the genre down to like its essential elements in a way. And I think like you want to show aliens Superman or aliens superheroes, like I might pick just one of the Fleischer shorts. And fun fact, the first Fleischer short was nominated for an Oscar for best short film, the only superhero thing
that's interesting.
Close to that. Yeah, it's damn good piece of animation. Yeah,
I watched the '90s Superman when I was little too, and I don't remember that.
Oh, I love everything, the '90s DC.
'90s, goddamn '90s superhero cartoons. I mean, I'm not. I was a child, so coincidence perhaps, but that was some good shit back then.
'90s is just the best. I mean, the best people, the best superhero cartoons, the best movies, best music.
I have more credibility because I don't actually have knee-jerk '90s nostalgia at all. I spent most of the '90s wishing it was like the '60s and I could go watch.
That sounds like you. That sounds like you.
But
well, speaking of '90s cartoons, have you seen the new X-Men '97? You gotta watch it.
No, I have not. I loved that. I loved the X-Men cartoon in the '90s.
Oh, so good.
Batman is still the ultimate as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
As I've said before, I love cartoons so much more than I did as a child.
Yeah, cartoons rule. I mean, there's so much inventiveness and kind of open-endedness to the format. You can do whatever you imagine it. It's so unrestricted in a way that live action is.
It's so weird to assume that CGI is better. Well, it's easier. It's
which
literally
is a cartoon. Like, everyone's watching animated cartoons. Those are the big blockbusters, but they don't perceive it like that. It looks naturalistic. But it is. CGI is a cartoon. Like, all these movies are fucking cartoons. And that's good. That's fine. But, like, actually hand-drawn cartoons or, like, the Spider-Verse non-naturalistic cartoons can be way more fun and inventive.
Yeah, Spider-Verse I finally saw last year, and it was awesome. I was like, okay, I get it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I have not seen the sequel yet. That
shit came out of nowhere. Just like, oh, okay, animated Spider-Man movie. And then it turned out to be this unbelievable sort of project. Hope the third one is good whenever it comes out. Spider-Man's too blessed with movies between the Raimi ones and the Spider-Verse.
Let's not talk about what happened with Andrew Garfield. That shit was wrong.
Those are replaying in theaters right now too this week, but I'm not going because I don't like it.
No one's going.
There are people going, I think, but almost I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen many people, like, there are some people who defend parts of those movies for sure. Like any movie.
I've seen it, but
yeah, like any movie.
I only saw the second one, it's not like I
you only saw the second one.
It's not like I didn't know the character, and that was bad. It was bad in many ways. So.
It's like, who's this Spider-Man guy? I can't start on the second movie.
Spider-Man? I don't understand. I've never heard of such a thing.
I'm used to spiders and I'm used to man, but together, that's a weird thing.
I was bewildered the whole time. This spider fellow.
Yeah, those movies are bad. It's a shame. I don't know why they tried to reboot him so early, tell the same story again in like a very derivative way, and make it a little darker. And well, you have a movie now.
My husband hated Spider-Man until Homecoming, though, so I also salute Tom Holland.
He hated Spider-Man
as a character,
as a person.
Yes, as a person.
Because he's a great guy.
He just didn't like him as a superhero, and then
does your husband think that with great power does not come great responsibility or something? Because
Well, as much as you're right, the Raimi Spider-Man has a great origin. Homecoming is nice that it doesn't go through it again.
Oh yeah, they're smart to make
we've seen it, just like we've seen poor Bruce Wayne's parents get shot.
Yeah,
we know.
I agree. Telling it over and over makes no sense. I mean, unfortunately, it's just that I think the origins are often the best stories a superhero had. Like, there's nothing in a way more dramatic in the genre than like actually just becoming the superhero. And so I feel like that's the story a lot of filmmakers want to go to and tell. But
which is again why Man of Steel could have been something. Like poor little Clark being terrified of his powers again. If we have some moments like that, when he turns into like the god-powered Boy Scout, you're even more, it's even more great. Like, he can suffer with it. He can be like, why the fuck do I see people's skeletons? But it has to turn into something a little brighter.
yeah. I mean, maybe he wanted to at some point, but I feel like, I don't know, people. Man, I mean, Snyder's movies has his defenders, obviously, as everyone knows. And it's just weird. It's like in theory, there's brightness there, in theory, like, but I just don't. I watch those movies and like I don't feel any.
Well, actually the moment the proof of the missed opportunity is in oh my god, which one is it? It's the beginning of one of the ones after Man of Steel, where it's he has the hilarious upper lip where they have digitally removed his mustache because it was shot later. But it's like it's supposed to be a kid filming Superman on his cell phone.
Yeah.
And the way he's talking, you're like, why the fuck didn't we get that Superman? The one where he's friendly and cat, where's that? And then you're distracted by his ridiculous digital upper lip.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movies are terrible. It's like, where's that? That could have been the thing.
Yeah, they course corrected too late. And that was Justice League, the Whedon, to go back to that was the Whedon Justice
Which was also terrible,
which is
because there was abrupt Whedonism suddenly. In
that one, it was almost worse to me because it was like a Frankenstein of a movie. Like I could tell which scenes were Snyder and which were Whedon, so I'll take one or the other. I think. But the Snyder Justice League, did you see that?
I watched the beginning of it and I was like, I can't.
Yeah, it's like 4 fucking hours. But actually, it's my favorite Snyder thing I've seen. Like I didn't like love it, but like finally, I felt like there was, and part of it was because they let him do 4 hours, so it felt like a series of vignettes rather than like a coherent single film.
Yeah,
and so I think that like benefited his style.
Yeah,
and I actually found myself enjoying his weird long version of Justice League.
If you watch the whole thing, then you officially he gets a passing grade, or you do, because
I like never turn off movie. I'm like I'm addicted. I finish. I'm like not. It's just the way
I actually, which is weird because I supposedly have ADHD and can't get anything productive done. But I saw recently like a Reddit thread like, which Taylor Swift songs do you fast forward through to get to the bridge? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? A 3-minute song? Like
what? What is people's attention spans?
It's weird. I'm like, I thought my attention span was shit, but if I start, let's do the thing. I'm not gonna fucking listen to
like I commit, and even if it's bad, like it might be bad in an interesting way or something, or just funny, or I just want to finish it.
One of the only movies I have ever turned off solely because I couldn't take anymore was Ella Enchanted. Because that was a fucking great children's book, and the
that was Anne Hathaway?
Is baffling.
Oh yeah, I've seen that movie.
So weird.
I saw the movie a few years ago.
I can't take it.
I mean, admittedly, I wasn't a 8-year-old girl when I saw it.
So neither was I.
I'm not the intended audience, but I didn't like it.
If I read the children's book right now, I'd be like, this children's book fucking rules. And that's
what it was. I thought the premise was better for a book than a movie, because wasn't there some weird premise like where she couldn't.
She's cursed / blessed by a dumbass fairy who with the gift of obedience.
Right, she has to do what you say. And I felt like a half hour into the movie, I was like, this feels like a better premise for a book than a movie, because it means your character inherently has no agency or anything, and
which
rarely
she finds a way though.
Well, yeah, but like it's just like the whole time I'm just seeing a character with no, like, I don't know. And most stories I feel like are propelled by a character who's like doing something in the world.
One would think. Yeah.
Well,
very weird.
Well, I'll say the jury's still out until we get like the Zack Snyder Ella Enchanted, because maybe the visuals could be good. It could, the 4-hour cut.
There's yeah, the children. You know what? I don't know.
We're heading into the last phase of the podcast.
Like our generation is sullied. Like, we're scorned by, we only like shit for children. But I like Ella Enchanted, great children's book. I sometimes, to fall asleep, if I listen to an audiobook of a book that I know, it's very reassuring.
You fall asleep listening to an audiobook. Wow, I don't know how to do that.
Like, The Secret Garden is a fucking great book. That writing is really good.
I've never read it or heard it. I thought you were going to pick like Mein Kampf or something. You listen to it and sort of just...
So is The Little Princess, by the same author. Like, I keep thinking I've seen The Simpsons where the professor is playing with one of those toys with like the colorful balls, and you like push the thing on the stick and it pops.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And like these little kids, and they're like, "Can we play with it?" And it's like, "No, children, you won't appreciate it on as many levels as I do." And sometimes I think about that when I think about how much I like something for children, and I know why it's good now in a way that I probably didn't when I was little. But I always
great gag
about that scene.
I like that. I'm going to think about that now too. That's a really great gag. Well, I think it's a trade-off though. Like, when you're a kid, like, you kind of just take the surface level of everything, so you don't analyze it or contextualize it. But it feels fresh and it feels new and it feels like totally, whereas as an adult, like, less and less do things give you that feeling. But at least you can analyze and pick apart something and like see, oh, this was this influence and this was what they meant this and this stood for that. And like, that obviously has its own joy that you don't have access to as a kid.
Part of being alive. I'm a fan.
Oh yeah.
Well, we've really covered.
Maybe we've overanalyzed
as usual. Some might say. I would say no, but it's warm.
I'll have to think about it. But I'll get back to you. I'm going to go think about it for a while.
All right. Well, should we do this again next month as opposed to 2 months from now? I think that people demand it, to be honest. I think they're...
Well, whatever the people demand, I won't do.
All right. They're begging us to stop. Begging us to stop this podcast. They're weeping. Begging us just to wrap this up. So we should podcast on your birthday.
Yeah, maybe. It's later in the month, so maybe that's not ideal.
All right. We'll podcast on...
we could podcast on my unbirthday.
That's today.
That's true. We're doing that today.
We are doing that right now.
But my unbirthday a few weeks from now, maybe good as well.
Perfect.
And maybe who knows what we'll talk about then? Maybe they'll announce Richard Spencer for the Libertarian Party National Convention. The world is just a wide open place full of delights and wonders.
The corpse of Gary North will be speaking.
The corpse of Gary North.
I wish I had a band that I could call.
A hologram of 1993 Rothbard speaking.
That's good shit. We should throw the worst libertarian convention in the world and invite many dead people to come and speak.
We should. I love your ambition in life. We should throw the worst libertarian convention in the world.
Or they're already doing it for us. We'll have to. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we need to change our ambitions.
Mm-hmm, we do.
What about the best?
Nah. We've probably already done that.
Nah.
Like 3 people we both know sitting in a living room is a better libertarian convention. Let's be honest.
I've had so many good libertarian conventions in my living room.
That's the thing.
Just amazing.
Well, someday you should come here and we'll watch Spider-Man 3.
To Philly?
I do not live in Philly.
We'll get a Philly cheesesteak. We'll watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We'll run up the Rocky Steps.
Actually, well...
all simultaneously, by the way.
But those other 2, if you ever do come visit me, we should celebrate Philadelphia.
Yeah, we'll have a Philadelphia party. We'll eat Philly cream cheese.
We'll have to eat non-beef Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah, they make versions of that. I've had it.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
That's my new actual dream.
Tastes like Philadelphia, which is what you want.
I don't want to taste Philadelphia. It seems okay, but I don't want to taste it.
Of the cities I've tasted, it's not terrible.
Well, but do you agree?
I did think I was going to die a couple times, but again, I've had that experience in most cities I've tasted, so that's okay.
Huh. Well, I have questions about that, but we'll have to save them for next time. But yeah, we're gonna have a Philadelphia party.
I'm just kind of a paranoid individual. Is probably there's not much of a mystery to it.
Fair enough. All right, but that's we're doing that someday. It's gonna happen.
All right.
We can even have a Philadelphia party in Florida or wherever the fuck you live.
Philadelphia party. Wherever. I'll keep it a mystery to the viewers at home. You gotta keep them guessing. You gotta keep people on their toes. You know what they say in show business.
You live in Ron DeSantis's basement, and you just like bang on the pipes and like make him unable to sleep at night. Hopefully,
that's direct action.
Living in people's basements is direct action.
That's protest if I've ever seen it.
All right, anyone who got this far, congratulations.
Congratulations to our longtime listeners. You win nothing.
You win nothing. Except
listen to us next time. Maybe we'll win something then. I don't know. Maybe.
Including our one clearly favorite, our best watcher and listener on YouTube. If anyone has
shout out to what's their name?
I don't know. Offhand, I don't know.
Shout out to that person who comments on all our videos. You know who you are.
Yeah,
be proud of yourself.
She does. Yeah, no. Anyone who ever wants to ask us anything, we'll probably answer it. We have no standards. We're disgusting. No, I don't know.
You are such a great podcast host.
Listen, it's hot.
We'll answer anything.
There's no more coffee in here. It's gone.
We'll do whatever you want. Just send in requests and orders, and we'll obey them, and we'll act out strange scenarios.
Calm it down. All right, you could follow us on the internet if you wanted to. Non Serviams on all sorts of things like
just Google
Twitter,
the internet,
and YouTube, and Blue Sky, and Mastodon. We're fucking everywhere.
Well, I'm not on half of that shit. Right. I can't do more than a few social media. I'm sorry.
Okay, fans. Blue Sky is less annoying, but no. Follow Non Serviam on all those places if you want to. Follow me on all those places too. Non Serviam's probably on Threads or something.
And you can follow me on MySpace and on LinkedIn and on Snapchat.
Friendster, LiveJournal, Dead Journal, Zanga.
I don't even know some of these.
Those are all real.
I don't even know some of those.
I swear they were real. Okay, I have to go now. So that we stop talking someday.
Yep.
Goodbye, audience. Goodbye, Corey. Goodbye. See you next time.